Hi, I'm Pamela.
I'm Ronald.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Roberto.
And this is Group 1, and we're going to be talking about the cultural differences in the United States. The United States is more culturally diverse than you may actually know. We are a majority minority, which is where no one ethnic group dominates the population. And in the U.S., we have a wide variety of cultural differences. And in the regions of the U.S., this includes language, food, and manners. Our group has lived in the U.S., and we have different backgrounds, and we've traveled many places throughout the U.S. And the main points that we're going to be talking about today are language, food, and manners. First, I'm going to have Matt talk to you about language.
America is known as a melting pot, and language is no exception to that. English as a whole comes from Anglo-Saxon origins all throughout Western Europe and has a Latin aspect to it as well. Many words we use today come from Latin language. First, we have the Boston accent. Comes from in the 18th century, colonials would try to copy the more fancy London accent, so things became more rhotic. They would drop their R's, so words such as car and beer became ka, bia, all that sort of thing. And in the South, all throughout this region, it came from Irish settlers, as well as French and all the slaves with their Creole language coming from Africa. Everybody just kind of picked it up with all the intermingling between all the races and everything. And out through the Midwest, from Ohio all the way out here to the western seaboard, it was more French, Native America, and Native Canadians coming down. That's why Wisconsin and Minnesota had more high-pitched, nasally sort of accent to them, very similar to how the Canadians do. And next we have Roberto talking about all the American food.
American cuisine was influenced by Europeans and Native Americans in early history. Today there are many foods identified as American foods, such as hamburgers, potato chips, macaroni and cheese, and meatloaf. Also, the saying American apple pie usually means it's authentic American food. Also, there's different styles of foods that are specific to regions, such as the southern stuff, which is here, is usually referred as fried chicken, collard greens, black-eyed peas, and cornbread. Also, we have Tex-Mex in the Southwest, which right here from here, which includes this is a blend of Spanish and Mexican cooking styles that includes items such as chili, burritos, and it's heavily on cheese and beans. Jerky and dried meats that are served as snacks are also foods that were created in the United States according to the NPR. Next, we have Pamela talking about mannerisms.
Lastly, the mannerisms in America, we have something in common here. Like, we can't cuss, you have to have tipping always, and then we can't be flicking people off. But it's different throughout different regions. For example, in the Southern, we have that Southern hospitality, which is another term for the residents in the South. The Southern area, always warm, polite, and welcoming. According to Reese from Dapper James, she said there are all rules for these type of etiquettes, which is one is to always PV for an event, which helps the host of the party to know what time the guests are coming, how many people are coming, and the catering and the party favors. The other one is arriving on time. So Reese said that she usually takes about like 15 to 5 minutes early to arrive on location so that she can have good parking, get a restrooms, and be accommodated to the surrounding environment. She also says that it's very important to never arrive early for a party due to the host that can be preparing for the last minute party favors. She also says that lastly is to have common courtesy, meaning that you have to be polite, straightforward, and always with people in eye contact. Also, she said to make a really good first impression, you always have to have a firm handshake and with eye contact with the person. That leaves the person to having you have a good impression on them. Over here in the North, it's kind of different from the South. Usually the North is kind of rude, and I have personal experiences from that. They're usually rude because they have time, and so time is so precious for them because it's always a busy city and they're trying to get stuff done in the minimum amount of time. For an example, they have developed traffic laws for walking since, according to the NYC they say that 1.4 million New Yorkers have at least owned one car versus the 3.4 million who don't have a car. So usually there's a lot of walking over there. So they develop traffic laws such as like if you're a slow walker, you have to walk on the right side of the sidewalk. Because if you're on the left side, that's usually where people are in a hurry and they can bump into you and they make you have weird glares or like a mean remark on you. Another is that you can't stop in the middle of the sidewalk and take pictures because you might again bump into someone and then they might have a rude remark of you. From my personal experience is that we were down at New York for a week and we were marching in the St. Patrick's Parade. And while we were marching to the tune of Sweet Caroline, which is technically a Southern classic. That did not sit well with New Yorkers. We had food thrown at each other, they were like cussing, and again, these are teens who are like 15 to 16, 15 to 18 like that. But again, it's really rude for someone to throw stuff at you while you're marching and you travel so much for that way. Another way is that not all New Yorkers are rude. Some of them are really nice. We were, again, in New York, and we were traveling in a huge group of 500 kids, and a lot of people were nice to us. They were asking where we were from, what we were doing over here. So really depending on the person, New Yorkers are not that bad, or Northern people are not that bad. It's just, you have to be polite with them. Also, on the West Coast, it's very different over there. Over there, they're almost like a laid-back person, basically. They're patient with everything around them. And usually in California, they take pride in their coffee, so they were willing to wait for like at least 30 to 10 minutes for the coffee to be made because they're so patient over there. And they're very friendly over there too because they are willing to talk to a random person, even if they're sitting by or like walking. They're engaging in conversation. They're not afraid of like not avoidance or like ignoring the people such as yours. Lastly, we have Ronald for our conclusion.
As we wrap up this speech, we talked to you today about the cultural differences, as in the differences in language, food, and manners. And I would like for y'all to go out and try something that's out of your culture and out of something that you wouldn't normally do during your everyday life. And we may live in one country, but we all are here and we coexist as one.